That time of year has come again, when we sit back, contemplate life, think about the past 365 days, think about all that life has given us, and how we can make the next 365 better. We think about our would haves, could haves, should haves, the resolutions that we made at the beginning of the year, and how we have failed them. And we now think about what we're going to do for next year, and how we're going to make life better. But what is it about New Year's resolutions that make them so difficult to stick to? So hard to remain committed? I mean, it's not like we don't have the right intentions. We certainly start off on the right foot, and before you know it, we regress back into the habits of old. Now, there can be many reasons why we often fail at the goals that we set for ourselves for the upcoming year. Now, personally, I don't really do the New Year's resolution thing because I feel like we shouldn't have to wait for a new year to start in order for us to get going. However, I'm not throwing any shade, no judgment on anybody else, but for those of you who stick to the New Year's resolutions, new year, new me kind of mentality, I want to give you 5 tips, things that you should be doing to help make sure that you're successful at this year's 2021 New Year's resolutions. So my first tip for you is to just get started. Now, I don't know what it is about January 1st that makes people think that it's this magical day on the calendar that all of a sudden erases all of our bad habits and makes us start fresh. The reality is that starting today is the better option for you. As you just heard me say, I don't really do the New Year's resolutions because I feel like I shouldn't have to wait for a future date to get started. If there's something that I want to do, I get started today. And I want to encourage you to do that very same thing, which is just get started. There's no need to wait for a future date. Start now. Now, my second tip for you is to start small. I don't know why it is we put such pressure on ourselves and create these long, lengthy to-do lists and resolution lists that we know is just not really practical to complete. Perhaps it's because we have such ambitious dreams that we want to accomplish so much. And there's nothing wrong with having, big dreams and aspirations and things that you want to accomplish. But the problem is if we give ourselves this long list of things to do and don't achieve even one of them, it becomes disheartening to us and demotivating. I would suggest that you start with no more than 3. Now, depending on what it is you're trying to do, don't give yourself a list of 10 things that you want to accomplish. Start with 3. If I were you, I'd probably start with 1. And the reason why is I can complete the one task before I start creating others. And so when you start with a long list, right in and of itself, it can seem like an overwhelming task to accomplish all of these goals. And so my recommendation to you is to just start very, very small with 3. Don't do anything extravagant. Start with something simple that you absolutely know you can achieve and start small. Now, the third thing I have for you is to keep it to yourself. Now, I know that I've also talked about having an accountability partner. So if you're going to talk to people about what your resolutions are, I would recommend that you keep that to a very, very small group of people. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, I've also found that people are very quick to remind you of when you have failed. And so the less they know, the better it is for you. But more importantly, I think the real reason why it's important to keep it to yourself is because it's a personal goal. There really is no reason for you to broadcast all over Facebook that you're going to lose weight, get back to the gym, eat healthier, stop drinking as much coffee, or whatever it is that you're deciding to do. I think it's more important for it to be a self-victory when you achieve it. And now, when you also have accomplished a goal, it seems a little better when you can then broadcast to people to say, hey, I set a goal for myself, I achieved that goal, and here it is. Now, the fourth and probably the most important one of my tips is to make your goals SMART. And if you haven't heard this acronym before, go get a pen and a piece of paper and write this down. Goals that you try to create for yourself should be SMART. And that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. Let's take, for example, the resolution to get into shape. Now, many of us would write this down on a piece of paper just the way you see it here. But stop and ask yourself one question. Does this really give me a plan of action to accomplish this goal? Now let's take a second and rewrite this in a much more smart way. And you'll quickly see that with this level of detail in my goal planning, I'm much more likely to accomplish this goal. Now, I am curious about exactly what goals and resolutions you have for 2021. And so I'm going to invite you in the comments below to let me know what it is that you are trying to achieve for the upcoming year. I'd love to be a friend, a support, and an encouragement to you as you work through your goals for 2021. Now, my last and final tip for you that I think will also really help you make sure that you stay on track with your goals is to celebrate small wins. It's very common for us to want to wait till we achieve the full measure of that goal or that resolution before we decide to celebrate. And so, for example, if you decided you wanted to lose 20 pounds this year or in the first couple months or whatever it is, why not celebrate when you have lost 5 pounds? If your goal was to get rid of that $5,000 debt that's been hanging over your head for years on end, celebrate when you've paid off $1,000. There's no need to wait until you get to the end goal before you celebrate the small wins. Those celebrations of small wins along the way serves as motivation for you and lets you know that you're on the right track. And there you have it, 5 simple things that you can do to make sure that 2021's New Year's resolutions are actually in your good books as accomplishments rather than things that you've gone back and regressed on. Peace and love.